You're listening to the Impaired Files number 9. Yes, it is number 9. And as always, this week we have somebody on with us, and I'm going to really enjoy this one. And I want to give you a big shout out, guys. Thank you so much for supporting the last episodes, especially the ones with Alejandra Almeida and the other episode where we talked about sexuality in film. And I hope you guys have been enjoying the one with Michelle from Megawave. So thank you so much for that. And I always do enjoy you guys being the best possible people. And to the Patreon supporters, I love you all so much that today we're going to debut the new show for the Patreon section. So don't worry about that, guys. You're going to be getting this as soon as possible. So thank you, guys. Today I have somebody that I'm really, really excited to talk about. I'm sorry, guys. It's early. And she goes by the name Lauren Milici, and I hope I said that correctly.
Yes, you did.
Thank you. Yes. You see, what's it called? Everybody always gets my name wrong. But, yeah. So, welcome to the Impaired Files with the nerdy Chicano himself, a.k.a. Raul Alejandro Mendoza, everybody. We're going to go ahead and talk to Lauren Milici here, and she is a poet, and she is releasing her new book, Final Girl 2019, which you can go and pre-order like I am going to do as soon as I wake up. And, let's just get right into it. Lauren, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being on with me. Yeah, when I started the show, I had a little nice pamphlet where I wrote down all the possible people I want to have on here. And your name was in there. I said, Lauren Milici, I want to have her on. You're very creative. You were once a podcaster. You're pursuing your poetry, and I really wanted to talk to you. So, can you tell us a little bit about Final Girl?
So I started writing Final Girl in 2016, like the year that I entered my MFA program. I just graduated, and I think that was always going to be the title. It's a collection of poetry about trauma and survival. And I don't know, I always have like a little bit of a hard time kind of really going into detail, but like those were like the two themes, I think. And also being a female survivor of sexual assault and how the healing process kind of works in that regard.
Awesome. That's a good detail. That's a good detailing of it. Don't worry about it. Look, I'm interested in reading that, and what's it called? It must be really hard having to detail trauma like that. We just talked to Jason Inman, who we did an interview with, and he's releasing a book about comic book characters and their military experiences, and he served. And I said, God, man, it must be so hard having to kind of revisit the trauma from serving. And with you, it must be really hard to revisit trauma. And look, I like to go into an icebreaker question before we start. I ask. We've had film students on here. We've had Twitch streamers. We've had musicians, and you are a poet. I'm going to ask you, who is your favorite poet?
Ooh, I guess. Well, my favorite collection of poetry is Crush by Richard Siken. That was kind of like my gateway drug, like into poetry.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I have a favorite collection of poetry. I don't know if I have a favorite poet.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. My favorite is Jorge Luis Borges, and I love Borges's poetry. I think he's an incredible writer. I actually have like his complete poetry on my shelf right here, and it's all in Spanish. But like I told you, Spanish was my first language, so I know how to read, write, and speak it. So a lot of my books are like in Spanish. So Borges is an incredible poet. If you've never read any of his work, and if you can find the translated versions, you can probably find it. But I recommend you read Borges. He's really, really good.
Okay. Yeah, I only like can speak and read a little bit of Spanish.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So you can speak and read it a little bit. What are you? Anybody in your family Latino?
Yeah, my mom is Puerto Rican.
Ah, Boricua. All right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome to be speaking to a fellow Latina here. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, that's what happens when we record in the morning. Right? Once it goes, I'm all clogged up. But that's awesome that we're speaking to a fellow Latina here, especially a poet, right? That's awesome. And I know what's it called. I pay attention to the Twitter, so I saw that you wrote a tweet in Spanish when Edith Gonzalez died. Rest in peace
Mhm.
to Edith. Salome was a really really big what's it called part of my childhood too. And
Mhm.
what's it called, Doña Barbara? That one too. Oh man, I love that novela. It really sucks that she died. And you're talking about your grandma. So I want to go into the question. I'm circling a little bit here. Who was the earliest instance that kind of put the whole poetry interest in you?
I guess I've been writing since I was like very small.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was gonna write like novels or write the great American novel and be a novelist. And then my first poetry workshop in undergrad, the poet Melissa Carroll was like, "You're a poet. Like, why are you trying to write fiction?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, because I didn't think I could be a poet. I thought you had to have some like magical like sparkle about you or something
Mm-hmm.
to like be considered a poet. But once she kind of like told me like, no, you're a poet, I just kind of ran with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's really your undergrad workshop teacher who really really got you to dabble into poetry.
Hmm.
Yeah. But as a kid, were you always like kind of artistic? Were you always like finding creative ways to do your work? And were you always kind
Yes,
of interested in art?
yes. I thought I was going to also like be like an artist of some kind. I was really into anime,
Oh,
and I really wanted to like do Japanese animation.
yeah. Hey, that's
Um,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we love anime here. We have a special podcast here. We call it the Weeb Core, and they talk about all things anime. Yeah. What were some of your favorite animes?
Ooh, I guess Sailor Moon was like my first. I
Yeah.
feel like every like young girl like grew up watching Sailor Moon.
Yeah. It's an
Um,
awesome one.
I Sailor Moon and Prince of Tennis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I loved like I loved Inuyasha, of course.
Oh yes, yes.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
I always complain that I always say that Inuyasha is such an amazing anime, but the ending is terrible. I'm like, oh come
It's
on.
terrible.
Yeah, but I love
All that.
Inuyasha too.
Oh no, I was gonna say all that emotional anguish like for nothing.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, I always tell my friend that, and he goes, "Well, they continued another series." I'm like, "I know, but what's it called? That ending is just terrible, man. Come on, all the emotional anguish, all that build up, and you end it like that? Like, come on, man." I know you were talking about Dexter too. That's another show that where it goes like it builds up for seasons. Like, oh my god, it's gonna end really well, and then
Oh, I was so like last season was just like they were throwing everything at the wall trying to like see what would stick.
mm-hmm.
And episode was like that's it. But apparently they were supposed to make a movie after that, but they didn't. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome that you've always kind of been into art as a kid, and that must be that must be so interesting as well to see from now as you're older, you get to like see everything that happened before. Like for instance, with me, the my love of movies was always there, but I never understood why I loved it so much. And now when I look at
oh,
it as a kid, as when I see it right now as an adult looking at a kid, I was like, this is amazing that this one thing on the screen can invoke so many emotions in a child. Like, my earliest memory, I always go back to my little brother watching Bambi. Can't even
mhm,
speak a full sentence, but he's crying at the scene of Bambi's mom getting shot. And
mhm,
that's amazing that a child can feel that type of emotion, and it's not coming from real life. It's coming from a film. It's coming from something on the TV, and we were what's it called? We were the most well off family, so we had the VHS and what's it called? It's crazy that something like that can evoke so many feelings. So I bet your earliest instance of reading poetry, you kind of go back and you're like, wow, like I never thought that this would speak to me in the way it does speak to me.
Yeah, and film actually is like, and I don't know, like really inspires my art. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Final Girl is a trope in like the slasher horror genre.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there throughout all of my poetry, it's just there's so many pop culture references.
Yeah.
But film has always had a big impact on like my
Yeah.
writing and just like art in general.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something. It's such a big staple of American culture here, and was it what was your earliest experience with film?
I'm trying to remember the first movie I feel like I remember seeing was Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
That's probably my earliest movie memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was terrified.
Yeah, I was terrified too. I was like, "Holy shit, that's them big dinosaurs!" Yeah, it's. I was that scene where when they're in the kitchen and the kids are hiding behind the stuff. I'm like, "Oh my god, oh no!" It's that movie
Mhm.
always, and I have it on Blu-ray, and I never rewatch it because I feel like I'm gonna go back to when I was a kid and I was like, "Dude, this used to terrify the shit out of me."
Mhm. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had all the dump the the Disney stuff. We buy them at Mexico and then we bring them over here. We'd have all
Mhm.
the Disney stuff and Dumbo. Ah, I remember I used to cry with Dumbo so much when the mom was being taken away. You
Yeah,
know.
movie is rough.
Yeah. What else? The Lion King and yeah, I just had like a collection of a bunch of stuff on VHS that we would watch over and over and over again. And that's awesome that it influences your writing because it kind of always goes hand in hand. They're both creative outlets, and what's transcribed on screen can always be transcribed back to writing, and especially in our interpretations of it. And I wanted to get an idea of how many poems are in this book, Final Girl.
That is a good question. I don't actually like know that number off the top of my head. I know so it's a double book.
Mm-hmm.
So when you flip the book like to the other side, it's You Can't Pick Your Genre by Emily O'Neill, and then you flip back to the other side and it's my book. It's called A Do-Si Do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really sure, like, cause her book is a little bit longer than mine, but I think my like original draft of the chapter was like 32 pages, so it's probably like between 32 and 36 pages.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's cool that you get two
Hmm.
books in one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys better go and pre-order that, guys. Yeah. We, go and support. What's it called? Up and coming writers, especially because that is so so important, and especially female writers, man. Some of the greatest writers in this world are female, but sadly they're not. As famous because they're not as appreciated as male writers. And I wanted to get a little bit of that. How does it feel being a woman author in this, in this creative outlet, and how important is that to you?
Very important, especially just being a like a queer
Mm-hmm.
to like survive like just being a queer trauma survivor like
Mm-hmm.
means a lot to me. I mean, I don't really like always say that I'm Latina just because I'm very white passing and people actually don't believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I've been accused of like of by people online of like lying about my heritage. Which is
Yeah.
like I'm like, do you want to see a picture of my do you want to see my mom's birth certificate? Like I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
you want from me.
Hermana,
Um,
Hermana, I'm here to tell you that it doesn't matter what your skin is. It doesn't matter if you don't speak the language. That is the
mhm,
culture you grew up in. You have as much right to it as I do, as my brothers
mhm,
do, as our
mhm,
as our darkest skinned brothers and sisters do. It's okay.
mhm,
You know, I'm white passing too. As you can see by the pictures. But
mhm,
that is the only culture I knew growing up. I didn't know anything
mhm,
else. So it's okay if you're white passing. Embrace your culture, embrace your Latinidad, because that's who you are and that's what you grew up with.
mhm, mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Um, yeah. I will say before I got into grad school, just on being a woman poet or a female poet, or woman identifying, I had a classmate who was also a poet. We were both applying for MFAs, and
Mm-hmm.
he had said to me like, you're not going to get in. And I was like, why? And he was like, because no one wants to read like confessional poetry by a woman. No one wants to read poems about like a woman like being sexual or like having a sexual experience or like trauma or anything like that. And I got in, and he didn't get into any. So.
Yeah. Yeah, take that, dude, in your dumbass opinion. You know that it's always striking to me how taboo it is to even write about sexuality. We were talking about it on the last episode with film, and it's like, why is that so taboo? It's like it's something normal. It's something that everybody will go through in their life. You know, it shouldn't be this ugly thing to talk about sex. It's a normal human thing. Everybody does it. Whether you do it for pleasure, whether you do it for procreating, it's a thing that every human will go through at one point in their life in one form. So it is crazy how it's just so taboo of a subject.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree, especially if it's a woman.
Oh yeah, cause the dude can be out here saying like, oh, I fucked this one, I fucked that one, and they're like, oh, good job, dude. But if a woman talks about it, oh, let's stone her to death, cause that's not right. Well, bullshit, man. You know, they have as much right to talk about it as we do. You know, it's such a taboo subject, and it's stupid. And you know, that guy's opinion was so stupid what he said. But look, you proved them wrong. You've graduated. You're putting out your first book, and you know, you at least got somebody over here who's gonna buy it.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And it's like I said, it must be really hard to have to revisit the trauma in this book. And if that's the overall theme of it, and when did you get the idea of like this is what I wanted to write about?
Well, so okay. When ow, ow, my eye hurts. Oh, sorry. When I got to, so I love West Virginia. I love living here. But when I
Mm-hmm.
first moved here, I was assaulted by someone in my program,
Mm-hmm.
and it brought back, memories of other assaults, other trauma, things that I had never dealt with or gone to therapy
Mm-hmm.
about, and it just all of a sudden just like took over my writing, and it was like
Yeah.
all I could write about.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so sorry about that. By the way, guys, I am going to put a content warning at the beginning of the episode, so don't worry, guys. But if you're listening past this point, what's it called? Yeah. Look, that's very interesting, and it's I'm sorry that had to happen, but it's I'm glad that you found a way to kind of creatively talk about it because not a lot of people can talk about the stuff that they've been through. You know, it's
Mhm.
whether you translate it to your art or whether you translate it to just just speaking about it, it is very 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 it's very brave of you. It is also very much a sign of how of the person that you are. Very strong, very creative, and very uplifting person. You know, I'm always looking at what you're doing. I'm like, God, man, like you're killing it, girl. You're killing it. You got a new job. You're putting out your first book. You're living in a nice place, and you're kind of you're living your best life, as the kids say these days.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. So, I wanted to first of all, what's it called? I wanted to kind of get an idea of like, what's it called? Having people when we're going through so much shit and having
Mhm.
to get accustomed to finally living the way we want to. How do you navigate that? You're like, wow, like I'm pretty much like I always tell people, I'm pretty much navigating something I have no idea how to handle right now. Like I have never been this happy as I have been before, and it
Mhm.
must be difficult for you too. How do you navigate this? How do you really wake up every day and you're like, wow, like I'm pretty much experimenting with something I've never felt before because I'm living a really really good life right now. I'm about to put out a really good book, and how do you get through that day by day?
So I was really, really depressed for most of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know a lot of that is just like the like transitional anxiety, like not knowing what life was going to be like after I graduated.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to take the PhD route, but I didn't, and I'm really glad that I didn't,
Mm-hmm.
because academia right now is just like I would be in school for another 5 years, and then I wouldn't even be like guaranteed a job,
Mm-hmm.
because what a lot of institutions are doing, is like firing like assistant and associate professors and hiring adjuncts like to cut costs.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that I didn't, but I really like just struggled with being like happy and trying to, I don't know, because I don't like uncertainty. I don't like when I don't know where I'm going. I need things. I'm someone who needs things to like be in place. And so I guess I didn't expect to get like hired at my university, in a completely different department, and like making more money than I expected to. And then just like finding like my like dream apartment, and you know having an incredible and like supportive boyfriend. Like I'm in my first like healthy relationship, and like when you read I feel like when you read Final Girl, you know, I like the girl in those poems never ever thought she could ever be in a healthy positive relationship ever. And now I am, which is like really like it can be, it just sometimes I think about like how far I've come and I actually get overwhelmed.
And that's very much understandable. You know, we're not used to the way we're living at the moment. You know, it's especially as people who experience certain trauma. You know, you're kind of at this point where you're like, you know, I've only known a certain way, and now that I'm doing certain things a certain other way, you know, it's hard. It's really a new chapter. It's, you know, it's new grounds for you to be walking through, and I applaud you for being where you are right now, because you know it takes a lot of hard work. It takes so much strength for you to be where you're at, and I think that's indicative of the person that you are.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And you know we're pretty far into this interview. You know, I don't want to take up too much of your time, because we do have to do a Patreon section, and that's gonna be fun. I already have what I want to talk about on that, and you know, I want to get a little final questions in here, and I wanted to talk about, you know, living in West Virginia. What's living in West Virginia like? Because I have no idea. I've never been to the East Coast. I don't know anything about that. As far as the East Coast that I've been to is Florida. You know, that's it.
Oh, I'm from Florida.
Yeah, I visited Orlando. I visited Miami, and you know all that stuff. You know, but I've never been to like fucking West Virginia, or anything like that. You know, like I told you, I'm from Bronzeville, Texas. I'm like a little border town here in between Mexico and the United States. You know, I've been to Mexico a lot. Oh man, I've been like a lot of places in Mexico, but I've never been to the East Coast. What's that environment like over there in West Virginia?
It's really, I mean, it's really beautiful here, and I don't it's an interesting. So Morgantown, which is where I live right now, is completely different from the rest of the state. I mean, like this is as like I don't know, as like normal small town as it gets, and then when you drive out of Morgantown, it's just big like green hills and mountains, and just like it's really really different than like any other place I've lived. Like, and we have cryptids, like we have Mothman, and in the States like super haunted, and it has so much history. And it's actually so I'm Italian. West Virginia is populated by Italians. Because when they immigrated over here, they all got jobs in the mines. So I can get good Italian. I never thought that I would be able to move to West Virginia and then be able to get like good Italian food like whenever I wanted.
That must be awesome. That must be awesome.
Yeah, you know, because when people think of West Virginia, they just think of like the country road song or that or like banjos or something. But it's a big like arts community. And people who are from here like are really really proud of their state, and I feel like Floridians do not have that kind of state pride.
Yeah. I got an uncle that lives in Naples, so we rarely ever visit. But you know, going to Florida is something else. But I've never been to West Virginia, and it's nice that you're somewhere where you feel comfortable. You know, I probably would never be able to live over there. I would probably have to move somewhere where it's populated with people of color, you know, with either Latinos or, you know, other people of color, and where I can be nearest to the best Mexican food that I can have. Because nothing beats the Mexican food here, but I'm just saying I need to be somewhere where, you know, it's populated with, you know, the people that I'm used to. And where I live in Houston, it is one of the most diverse cities you can ever be in. You know, it's like all types of, and I love that. I love the diversity because you learn from different people and different cultures, and it's just so awesome to be around like all the different types of people. But that's awesome that you're somewhere where you can, where you've got the things where you've got the things you want, and you're comfortable living there because it nothing sucks more than being in a place where you don't feel comfortable and you don't like.
That's true.
Exactly, yes. And that always goes to like, that always affects what you do, the work you do, your art, and you start seeing like, well, no wonder I wasn't writing too much back then because I wasn't in a place where I liked to be at. And, I wasn't doing something I liked over there. So now that you're basically in somewhere that you enjoy, it's awesome.
I agree.
Yeah, it always that's always a thing that I tell people, like, if you're not happy, man, like, find a way to do something that you are happy in, because that's the only thing that matters. And yeah, it's the only thing that matters in this life is being happy. Not any other things. So sorry. I want to get a little final question in here, and I know that you don't do podcasting anymore.
Yeah.
Is that a venture that you want to go back to doing?
I mean, I don't mind guest starring on people's podcasts. I mean, the issue was that I was in my last year of my MFA, and I just didn't have enough time to do it.
Yeah. I really, really did like your analysis of Hereditary, though. That was one of the episodes that you were on, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and I loved your analysis of Hereditary. I fucking loved Hereditary too. I love that you kind of thought about it as, as a indicative of mothers and women and the things that they go through. And I was like, oh, it's such an amazing analysis. I love that. And you don't mind guest starring, but will you ever go back to kind of making one yourself when you have like kind of like the free time to do it?
Yeah. It's like I have to, like, with my new job, I'm just now still trying to figure out a writing schedule, and I'm just like I mean, I'm more of a sporadic writer, but it's kind of hard to find that balance. Like, I've been in school for so long, like it's weird to like not be in school, and now I have to find my own schedule outside of that when, like, being in school was like kind of like my identity.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. I'm still in school, but I do the film stuff. I do the podcasting stuff. I still go to work, and I kind of pushed away the whole social life aspect. I don't really go out that much, so it's hard. It's really hard to balance all that stuff. And now that you're kind of out of it, it's kind of really hard to get back into the things you were doing once you were in school. Yeah, I'm so sorry, but. Yeah, we're here at the final stretch of it. There's always one last thing I ask before we say goodbye. But yes, I'm glad that you're kind of into wanting to do guest spots, because I'll contact you about doing guest spots, especially for Ari Aster's Midsummer that's coming out soon. That's one that I really want to watch. Oh yeah. And what does the future store for Lauren? What's coming up? Is there any projects that you're kind of writing, or is there anything that you're like, I don't want to talk about it, but I am doing something?
I'm working on another chapbook right now.
Oh, all right. I don't want to ask you to talk too much about it, but is it something kind of close to Final Girl, or are you kind of experimenting with something else?
It definitely feels like a sequel to Final Girl.
All right. Well, you heard it from her yourself. You got to go and pre-order Final Girl, because this one feels like a sequel to Final Girl, so you're going to want to read that one too. So, guys, go and read it. It's awesome. It really explores your mind and expands it, and you should definitely go and pre-order Final Girl on what website?
Biglux.com.
Biglux.com. Go and do it, and, support Lauren Milici, because she's an awesome person. So we're going to have to go into some housekeeping here. But, Lauren, can you let them know where they can find you on the internet?
Oh, I'm on just about everything at Motel Siren.
All right, go and follow her at Motel Sirens. So, as always, thank you so much for listening to this episode. You can rate and review this podcast on your podcast app of choice. So, wherever you want to rate it, you go and do that. We really do appreciate that, because it helps the feed grow. And I want to thank you all so much for the past support, like I said. And especially to our Patreon supporters who get these episodes a week early before anybody else does. So, thank you so much for that. And you guys are going to get to listen to this goodness, what's it called, a week before everybody else. So go and follow the Nerdcore, the podcast network, on Twitter at the Nerdcore _, Instagram at the Nerdcore. We have other shows on here, like the Nerdcore podcast, where we do our film and TV stuff. And we have the Gamer Core, where we talk about video games. The Weeb Core, where we talk about anime. And we have the Ladies of Nerdcore, where they talk about pretty much anything they want, but it's through the lens of women. And you make sure you go and check out that show that's hosted by Ashley Garcia and Daniela Nunez. So go and do that, guys, and support that show. And what else is there? Oh, thank you to our executive producers of this show. You can become an executive producer as well by going to patreon.com/nerdcore, CORPS, and pledging to the $15 tier. Shout out to Grayson Barker, our original executive producer, who you can follow on Twitter at WarlordHitman98 and on Instagram at Grayson Barker 98. Also, go and follow Journey on Twitter at IceMocha_Journ, Journ. She is our other executive producer. And also go and follow Shane at twitch.tv/SRRKK. That's hard. I don't know. Saying the S and the R's and the K's, it's hard for me. And follow him on Twitter as well at XSRRKK Twitch. God, I hate when I do that. So, thank you so much for listening. And we'll see who we have next week. But in the meantime, the file is closed and shut, but not classified, my friends. And I'll see you guys later.